Hello everyone, I'm here today to discuss two more literary terms, and even we can say three are there, mainly two, that is a rhetorical question and the other one is Euphuism. Let's begin with rhetorical question. See, when we talk of rhetorical question, it is one of the rhetorical figures. The words like figure of speech, rhetoric device, rhetorical figure, they seem very similar, but we should understand the differences. At least we should not consider this rhetorical figure as just figure of speech. Of course it is a figure of speech, but it is a particular kind of figure of speech, and in that particular kind we have one rhetorical question. So rhetorical question is one of the rhetorical figures. So now the question arises, what is rhetorical figure? When rhetorical question is a rhetorical figure, then we should understand what is rhetorical figure first. Some figures of speech which depart from the standard or literal use of language. Depart, okay, you can say which deviates, which does not talk directly, something like of standard or literal language, literal use of language. So some figures of speech means we are talking of rhetorical figures. Rhetorical figures are some figures of speech which depart from the standard or literal use of language. So we have to understand mainly by the arrangement of their words to achieve special effects. So this is important, that is why red pen is used here. By the arrangement of their words to achieve special effects. So here we are getting special effect through arrangement of words, not by shuffling the meaning. No, we are getting special effects by the arrangement of their words, not like metaphors and others by a radical change in meaning of the words. As we see when we say all the world's a stage, then we know that the whole world is directly being compared to the stage, and for understanding that we'll have to understand world in the context of a stage. So for understanding metaphors and other figures of speech, we have to understand radical change in meaning of the words. But here in rhetorical figures, what do we see? We see the arrangement of the words to achieve special effects. For example, so when we talk of some of the rhetorical figures, we can talk of anaphora, A-N-A-P-H-O-R-A, anaphora, apostrophe, which in itself is a kind of you can say personification, a kind of personification that we see in apostrophe, as we see when the poet like P.B. Shelley says, "Oh west wind," that's an apostrophe, a kind of personification in a special context. So When we talk of the examples of rhetorical figures, we can talk of anaphora, apostrophe. Then there is a word chiasmus. 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 It's chiasmus. Then paralypsis. Another example is paralypsis. PARALIPSIS. Then the topic of ours, that is rhetorical question, and then zeugma. We'll talk about them later, but today we'll have to focus more on rhetorical question. Since rhetorical question is a kind of rhetorical figure, that's why we had to talk of rhetorical figure and some of its other examples. So now, rhetorical question is a sentence in the grammatical form. So it's basically a sentence. Which kind of sentence? In the grammatical form of a question. So by seeing the sentence, you will see as if some question is being asked, which is not asked in order to request information or to invite a reply. See, here question is asked for that, but that question does not demand any answer or any exact answer, you can say. Variation can be there. Various types of rhetorical questions are there. When you read J. Icadon, you will find some different types there in rhetorical questions section. J. Icadon is also a very good book for the literary terms with M.H. Abrams that I generally discuss. So, a rhetorical question is a sentence in the grammatical form of a question which is not asked in order to request information or to invite a reply. So it does not demand any reply, but to achieve a greater expressive force. So here emphasis is there. Here we will find emphasis in expression. So it's used for emphasis in expression, for intensifying the expression than a direct assertion. See, means you can say it's a kind of indirect way of saying something with emphasis. A rhetorical question is a kind of indirect way of emphasizing a particular statement. For example, see, generally when we talk of the situation, the corruption or the negative things present in the society, for example, when we talk of dowry, when we talk of corruption, when we talk of dirty politics, we can ask a question by ourselves. Isn't it a shame? Isn't it a shame? So while asking that particular question, we are not demanding any answer. In fact, we are trying to say that it's a shame, and that is very forceful. When we say, isn't it a shame? It means we are saying that it's a shame, and there is a great emphasis there. Is a forceful alternative. So this particular sentence, that is in the form of rhetorical question, isn't it a shame? This is a forceful alternative of the sentence, it's a shame. See, one very good word that I have found here regarding this. In the terms of modern speech act theory, one can talk of speech act theory. That is also a very important point in linguistics, modern linguistics. When we talk of speech act, I think it's this speech act theory was given by Austen. Yes, Austen, Austen. So in modern speech act theory, it's called illocutionary force. See, This forceful alternative can remind us of illocutionary force is not to question but to assert. So the main purpose is not to question but to assert. What do we understand by illocutionary force? Illocutionary means relating to the communicative effect. So the effect that we want to create, the illocutionary force that we want to create through rhetorical question is that we don't want to actually ask a question. In fact, we are answering, or in fact, we know the answer. We know the answer of the question. Sometimes we know it's in negative. Sometimes we know it's in positive. It can be either. Let's talk of some of very beautiful examples. Those exist in English literature. The most famous rhetorical question in English. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? And this is the quotation that is always asked in all kind of examination, and this has become synonymous to P.B. Shelley's personality, and that somehow proves that he was very revolutionary in nature, how he motivates the people through his poetry. Even if that was not his concern, it was very personal, but we can think of Shelley as a revolutionary poet. Regarding these lines at least, O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? This seems a question, but no, this is not a question. This shows that, see, hopes are there. We must be hopeful. Or in other context, we can say, we must wait for Godot, as Samuel Beckett narrates in his Waiting for Godot. So, if winter comes, can spring be far behind is not a question. This is an assertion. This is an alternative forceful saying, alternative forceful assertion. And as you know, this particular line is the ending line of Ode to the West Wind, which was written in 1820 by P.B. Shelley, Percy Bysshe Shelley. And one should remember that this particular poem, which is an ode, which is a very fine example of apostrophe, this was written in, or this is written in terza rima. Okay, let's talk of another example, that is by another poet who was very fond of using this particular device, the rhetorical question. The poet who is known as the last romantic, the poet who is famous for his poem like The Second Coming, that very famous line by W.B. Yeats, the famous line of that poem, The Second Coming. Things fall apart, center cannot hold. And and that things fall apart, that particular phrase was very well used by Chinua Achebe for the title of his novel. So Things Fall Apart is the name of a novel by Chinua Achebe, and that title was taken from the poem of W.B. Yeats, the poem Second Coming. Okay, so that was something additive to W.B. Yeats's personality. Let's talk of the example that he uses in his one of the poems, that is Among School Children. There he says, Yeats says, how can we know the dancer from dance? See, dance, D-A-N-C-E, an English word which has two pronunciations. One that is American, that is dance. One that is British, one that is dance. So dance is American, dance is British. So he asks, how can we know the dancer from dance? This is a rhetorical question. This can compel us to think that, of course, it's not easy to understand a dancer from dance. See, indirectly or directly, we can talk of that, how we cannot, analyze the personality of an artist through his art. Sometimes we can, but most of the times we cannot. It's a very debatable issue. One can talk on both the faces regarding this. So this line, how can we know the dancer from dance? This line is taken from Monk School Children by W.B. Yeats. Another example that I have found in J. Cudden, he talks of Philip Sidney's use of rhetorical question in one of the sonnets, that is 47th sonnet, taken from Astrophil and Stella, very famous work, you can say magnum opus of Philip Sidney. There we find several rhetorical questions are there, but I have picked just one sentence. Or want I sense to feel my misery? Or want I sense to feel my misery? See, here you will see the spelling is different. F-E-E-L-E. We don't have F-E-E-L. We are having F-E-E-L-E. For misery, we don't have M-I-S-E-R-Y. We are having M-I-S-E-R-I-E. So as you know, it is written in 16th century English. That was quite different from modern English. That exists today. So this was something about a rhetorical question. Now, move to the main topic, for which I have put much effort in understanding several rhetorical devices. You will understand why I was talking of other devices, because now I am going to discuss one term that is called Euphuism. The spelling is E-U-P-H-U-I-S-M. Mind it, there are two words and very confusive. One is called Euphemism. The spelling is E-U-P-H-E-M-I-S-M. I repeat, E-U-P-H-E-M-I-S-M. And that was euphemism. What was euphemism? I talked about it. It was an inoffensive expression used in place of blunt one that is felt to be disagreeable or embarrassing. As we talked that how pass away is used for die. Okay, so it was euphemism, but now we are going to talk of euphuism. Concentrate. Euphemism and euphuism. So here we have to talk of euphuism, that is E-U-P-H-U-I-S-M. It's very interesting how this word came into existence. Let's talk of it. It is an elegant Elizabethan literary style. See, very clearly the age is mentioned, Elizabethan literary style. So it originated in Elizabethan age, marked by excessive use of balance. Excessive use means too much. Excessive use of balance. What kind of balance? What do we find here? We find antithesis, alliteration, frequent use of similes drawn from mythology and nature. See, several things we will find here. Antithesis, alliteration, similes, and especially similes are drawn from mythology and nature. And that makes it very complicated. It's actually elegant style, a kind of sometimes a writer has that kind of thinking to boast his knowledge. When one is very well read, one tries to create an impact on the reader that, see, I have read these all things, and that's why I'm quoting such and such things, I'm talking of such and such things. A very fine example that you find in The Wasteland, where you find several allusions. We'll talk on that how different rhetorical devices are being used, and those all uses make this particular term that is called Euphuism. So this definition that I talked of Euphuism, that is an elegant Elizabethan literary style marked by excessive use of balance, antithesis and alliteration, by frequent use of similes drawn from mythology and nature. It is taken from Merriam-Webster dictionary. Now let's talk of some of the points regarding this. It's an artificial elegance of language. So artificiality is there, means of course, when you will have to boast, when you'll have to use a grand style, you will have to put your mind, you'll have to use your mind, your brain very effectively, and for that you'll have to make the writing very artificial, means not as natural as it comes in your brain. It's an artificial elegance of language, formal and elaborate prose style. See, it's formal in nature and very elaborative prose style, used in drama, prose fiction, conversation of English court circles. See, English court circles, that is very important to understand here. See, when we talk of the language of administration, even in our Indian context as well, see, this can be easily understood through the translation, administrative translation. See, in the field of administration, some words that we are having there, we don't have simple words there. See, for example, when we talk of the word authority, as we understand authority, that when a particular person has authority, means the person is very powerful, is considered to be having the power for a particular thing. The Hindi translation that we are having for that authority is pradhikaran. Means I just want to tell you that when you talk of administrative translation in Indian context from English to Hindi, we are having very Sanskrit-nisht words, not very easy Hindi words. No, we have a very different kind of vocabs there. If one is very good in literature, that doesn't mean that one can become a very good translator in administrative field. For that, one has to learn those technical words, those registers of that particular field in Hindi as well. So one has to understand, because as it is taken as something official. So when you talk of official language, that is always, as we generally perceive, that is always tougher than spoken language. Because as you know, when you are giving anything in writing, each words has its importance. So here, when one writer wants to use elegant style, literary style, and as one takes inspiration from that Elizabethan style, that is called Euphuism. See, when you talk of the royal courts, of course, the people of royal courts will not talk like layman. They are expected to be well read, they are expected to be well educated. So their language is far superior to the languages of bourgeois or to the languages of common people, laymen. Of course, when we talk of the countries like England and other European countries, they have classism there in their society. As we are having casteism here in India, they have classism there. They have the division like higher class society, middle class society, lower class society, and even then there is substrata, higher middle class, lower middle class. So that is the kind of division that we perceive there. So that division is not only on the basis of the property, on the basis of the money or the fortune that they have. We can perceive the difference in the use of language as well. Of course, the language of a layman, the language of a lower class society person is very much different from the language of a higher class society person. Okay, so let's talk of this particular word, that is Euphuism. This is derived from Euphues, the Anatomy of Wit. This is a work by John Lilly, and it was written in 1578. So 16th century. As we know, Elizabethan era spans from 1558, the time when Elizabeth took the throne, to 1603, the time when she died. So 1578 is the date, is the year of publication for Euphues, the Anatomy of Wit. So this Euphuism is taken from that particular word, Euphues, and this work is written by John Lilly. It's a moralistic prose romance. In fact, he used the same exaggerated prose style. Exaggeration is there. See, exaggeration. Exaggeration, you understand the word exaggeration? While defining hyperbole, we always use this particular word. Exaggeration is there. Means when we talk of something in a very what I should say, that something which is not there, we extend it too much. That we see in hyperbole. He saw 1,000 at a glance. That is not possible in reality. How can a person see 1,000 at a glance? It needs much time. So he used the same exaggerated prose style in his Euphues and his England. That is written in 1580. See, that is the name of another work. This particular word Euphuism is taken from Euphues, the Anatomy of Wit, which was published in 1578. Later, in 1580, he published another work of his, which is known as Euphues and his England. It also has the same use of elegant style. His stage comedies as well, means even in his stage comedies he used this Euphuism. The style is sententious. Sententious means concerned with sentences. The style is sententious. So in sentences, what do we have? And that is why we are having some of the devices here, and these all devices concerning with sentences. Sentences of different kinds. For example, full of moral maxims. What is called maxim? I talked about it. Moral maxims relies on syntactical balance. Syntactical balance means syntactical is something concerned with sentences. Syntactical balances, antithesis, reinforces the structural parallels by heavy and elaborate patterns of alliteration, assonance, exploits the rhetorical question, and is addicted to long similes and learned allusions. See, these all words, those are written with the red lines. These all things we find in Euphuism. Moral maxims, syntactical balance, antithesis, alliteration, assonance, rhetorical questions, similes, allusions. That's why I have talked about these all earlier. See, this is page number 9. But so it was written earlier, but I thought that these terms are to be discussed earlier so that we can understand this particular term euphemism here. So euphemism is not a single entity. It is a kind of style which takes these all in it. The use of these all different devices give birth to euphemism. Is addicted to long similes and learned allusions. Learned means say allusions are of different kind. Some allusions are there which are very contemporary in nature. For understanding those allusions, one should be of the same age. Same age means of same era, same period. But some when we talk of learned allusions, those are taken from earlier work of arts written by great authors. So learned allusions are here in euphemism, which are often drawn from mythology. See, the sources for these allusions that we have is from mythology, the supposed characteristics and habits of legendary animals. Legendary animals are also described or also used here in allusions. See, for example, we can talk of phoenix, the bird, or when we talk of legendary animals in Indian context, we can talk of for example, we can talk of Nandi. Yes, Nandi, who is there with Lord Shiva. We can talk of Sheshnag. We can talk of Vasuki Nag. Vasuki Nag, the name of the serpent of Lord Shiva. We can talk of Garuda. So several legendary animals are there. We are that much preoccupied with their depiction that we don't want to consider them as animals, even if they are animals. When we talk of the right of Lord Ganesha. So these all sort of things are used there in Euphuism. That's all for today. Thank you.